Hey guys, so Taco Phil here. Just doing some walking, trying to get some exercise in. Try to walk when I can. Try to make me feel a little bit better. So, or I should say, I get this question actually a lot about basically how do you survive the extra board? A lot of people, we get a high turnover. Last statistic I heard, and this is all my opinion. I'm not a representative of the company. These are my opinions and basically what I've done to survive my first 90 days. And so the most common time that people quit is within the first 90 days. So we got like a pretty high turnover rate. Last I heard, I think it was something like 60%. So within 90 days, 60% of Greyhound drivers quit. And it's basically, it all has to do with the extra board. So the extra board is basically what Greyhound calls their on-call driver. So if you watch that video, if you're interested in getting hired, you watch that video. One of the biggest thing, and it was the biggest thing for me, I was very scared by it as well, is when it says that you have to be on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And what this is the extra board. So you got two types of drivers. You have the extra board drivers and you have run drivers. Run drivers have regular scheduled runs, right? Monday through Sunday, they have a regular run that they do, and basically that's their schedule. They know when their days are off. They're not on call. They don't do extra work unless they feel like it, and if they do, they get paid extra. They are the typical 9-to-5ers. So you become a run driver with seniority. The longer you've been at the company, you bid for a run and basically you get awarded that run. Well, when you first start, you're an extra board driver, and extra board drivers are basically drivers who are still new to the company, and they don't have seniority, or they choose not to have a particular run for whatever reason. So what happens is you are on call and you pick up extra runs. Basically, a lot of it are whenever a regular run driver can't make it, whenever a regular driver can't make it, he's sick, he's going on vacation, whatever, you pick up that run. So they call you an extra board, so you're an extra board driver. That's the majority of the time. Sometimes they need extra drivers, and those extra drivers, will be an extra board driver, things like that. So you get a lot of extra compensation for being an extra board driver, which is part of the perks of being an extra board driver. But you live a hectic life. Your life is not your own. So I want to break down how, one of the hardest parts is getting past your 90 days and how you get past those 90 days on the extra board. Stupid camera here. It's not tracking my face anymore. Alright, so I made you a list here on how to survive the extra board. So number one is it's not for everyone. That's one of the most important things about the extra board. It's just not for everyone. A lot of people, they join this company and they think, yeah, it's cool, be a bus driver. And it is cool. You can, you get to do a lot of cool stuff. You get to enjoy being on the road, checking places out. It's a cool I enjoy the job, immensely. I enjoy the places I get to go. I enjoy the freedom. And it's just, I think personally, it's just cool to just wake up one morning and just be like, you know what? I'm going to a whole different state this morning. Maybe when I get there, I'll see what they got to eat. All that good stuff. So it goes, but if you've never done any long driving, you've never been a long haul trucker, you've only driven locally. Being a driver at Greyhound is not like being a driver at any other company. You know, we get a lot. I've seen a lot of what do you call it, school bus drivers or local drivers. They come and they think, oh, it's just going to be like, you know, where I work, driving on the street, and it's not. It's not like that at all. You know, you spend a lot of time from home. You spend a lot more hours in that seat. You know, you're a city bus driver. You're doing stop and go traffic. Your run may be an hour or two. You know, you get up, you take a break, you turn around, do that run again. When you're a Greyhound driver, sometimes you'll be stuck in that seat for like 3-4 hours. And that 3-4 hours is just you driving on a long road, you know. Because I don't know how many miles your typical school bus driver or your city driver does. But with Greyhound, I think on average I don't do less than maybe like freaking 400 miles per day. You know, I think the least you'll get is maybe like, you know, you do a quick run to like Vegas and you get like 260, 270 miles per day. And even then, you can do another run at the end of that day. So if you've never sat in a seat, driven about 300 miles with no music, no GPS, in a silent bus on a long empty highway, you don't. It's not for everybody. So that's the first thing you got to understand. It's definitely not a job for everybody. You know, it gets hard to get used to. I work patrol a lot, so I spend a lot of time sitting in the car, but it was still nothing compared to this. You got to get used to it. My next thing is check your sign-in times. So when you sign in when you get to any location, you have a phone, and your phone basically dictates when you sign in, where you were at any time, how many passengers, all that good stuff. So if you get to a location and you don't sign in on time, if you forget to sign in, if you log off, whatever happens, it'll jack up your time, and basically, you know, you got to call operations, tell them what happened, deal with this and that. It's a big pain in the butt. So check your sign-on times. I've had several times in which I've signed in, and then I looked at the board to find out that they had me, 2 or 3 hours before I was even being fresh. So check your sign-on times. And that leads into read the board. So when you get to a new location, you switch boards. So when you're an extra board driver, you don't belong to a specific location. That may be your home port, but you are a Greyhound driver. So I'm an LA driver, and if for any reason I go to Las Vegas, and I'm in Las Vegas, I hit their board. Las Vegas can choose to put me on any run they want. That's the life of being an extra board driver, you know. So if I get there and Las Vegas doesn't put me on their board, I might not be signed in, my time might be jacked up, I may not get the run that I want, I may end up, Timbuktu, at the end of the board. So you got to check the board. The board will tell you what position you are, because the position is by when people came in, what times they're fresh at, and underneath you'll have a listing of the different runs that are going to be open for that day and how many runs are going to be open tomorrow. So you'll look at that board and it'll tell you, oh, I'm fresh at this time, and then you look at your number and the corresponding number of runs and when they can call you, so you have an idea. So that leads me to my next tip, which is work the board. So by knowing what time you're going to be fresh, by knowing what runs are available, if there are enough people on the board that you're at, you can actually work the board. For example, today, I wanted to stay close to home, right? I had some stuff I needed to take care of tomorrow. I'm starting my run soon. I didn't want to be stuck out in, Sacramento or something, to have to end up trying to cushion back, then to pull a run back to San Francisco and then Arcata. So I called operations, and I told them, I said, hey, I'm trying to stay close. I see that close to my time, you have a San Ysidro run. Or you have that the Santa Barbara run that goes up to Santa Barbara, and then you pull a deadhead, or you drive an empty bus right back to LA. I'm calling early. I just became fresh. I'm not going to wait for you to call me. I'm calling because I want to see if I can get those 2 runs. And the guys, they were like, well, it's still a little early. We'll see which runs are going to come open, but you might fall onto one of those runs. But, so, he goes, but, we'll try to put you on there. And I've had several times in which, even though I wasn't lined up for that particular run, but because I was close to it and because they were able to get another driver who would be interested in taking runs before me or after me or whatever, they've been able to plug me in that run, even though I wasn't lined up to be on that run. If it's a run that it's going to be hard, it's going to be a long run, but it makes good money, it's where you want to go, a lot of times they'll want to plug you in that run, and they want you to do that work. So they'll be cool enough to give it to you and work with you because you're still working. With this one, I told them I wanted to do that run, and so what you do is, when that time comes, you may or may not get that run, but an important tip to make sure that they understand, and sometimes they'll work with you, is make sure you let them know, put it in the notes. So they have notes on you, and basically, they'll keep notes saying, hey, this driver has this day wants to book this day off, so he wants to do this. This driver, they have like notes where it says, oh, this driver's a difficult driver, this driver doesn't like to answer his phone, this driver, is always problems. So they'll keep notes on you. So I've had plenty of days in which I was lined up for a completely different run. I called and said, hey, just let them know in the notes I'm willing to fly. Let them know that, I'm trying to get back on this day. I'm scheduled to book off on this day. Try to work me back towards home or whatever. And they've called me randomly and just been like, hey, I saw that you were willing to fly somewhere so that you can get back to LA. We got this run that'll go back, but you got to fly from Vegas to Sacramento or whatever. Are you interested in doing it? And I'm like, of course I am. Of course I am. It lines up with what I want to do. It lines up with getting the job done and, makes me money. So work the board. Don't let the board work you. That's one of my big tips. And, don't be afraid to call. As soon as you're fresh, don't be afraid to call ahead. A lot of people, they want to try and get as much sleep. Now, look, get your sleep, get rested, but understand that they're gonna have work, so you want to try and jump in front of it before they come to you. All right? Don't be afraid to travel. This job is a traveling job. A lot of people, they don't make money or they don't like what they're doing because they're constantly being called to go somewhere. They're gonna be away from home, and I understand. You got kids, you got family, you got loved ones, you want to stay close, but this job is a traveling job. Don't be afraid to fly. Don't be afraid to go to places. Don't be afraid to get out there. You're gonna make your best money going places. One of the best money making runs I did was going to El Paso and doing that El Paso to San Antonio. It's a long run, but I only did it I flew out there. I did it for a couple of days. I made some really good money. I made more money in, those 4 days of being out in San Antonio than I normally would, in a week of freaking being in LA and doing short runs. So don't be afraid to get out there. Don't be afraid to tell them that, you're willing to travel. A lot of times if you let them know that you're willing to fly to places and do that hard work or do that work, that people want to stay home and don't want to skip, they'll give you those choice runs, and it'll help you, in the long run when they see that you're a reliable driver and that they can call you because they know you want to work, you want to make that money. So don't be afraid to travel. If you're afraid of flying, try to get over that. You're more likely to get into an accident on the road than you are to, get into an accident in an airplane. All right. So next thing, give options. When it comes to operations, they have you lined up with a specific run. They want you to fill this run. They got a run that needs to be filled. But they're always open to doing work that benefits the company. So a lot of times I'll give them options. I'll be like, hey, I'm really trying to be in LA today, or be in LA later today or tomorrow, and I see that San Ysidro run, which will have me back to this evening, is 2 people below me or 2 people above me. Maybe I could do that run, and you could put me on another run, day after tomorrow, or maybe you could fly me somewhere, or maybe I can do another run. Like I told him, I said, hey, the San Bernardino run might be open. You got that run? Can I do this run? Hey, I'm low down on the board. If you want, instead of waiting to call me at 3 a.m. in the morning, there's a lot of people that can work. Hey, fly me somewhere else. You got to give them options. Let them know that you're flexible. Let them know that you're open. But the main thing, let them know that you're willing to work, and you will work with them to get the job done. By giving them options that they may not have thought of, it'll help you. I had one situation. I was stuck in Texas. I was stuck in Amarillo, and they had me on the board just in case, right? Because I was the only one there. And I told him, I said, hey, I talked to the previous guy, and he had said that I'd been out for a good number of days. He was going to try and get me back to LA, and they were like, we can't get you back to LA. There's no run going out there today. There's no run going out tomorrow. We need you there in case somebody books off. And I told him, I said, you know what? I said, I really don't want to book off, but I need to get back home. I got stuff I need to get done. I'm tired of being out here. I need some rest. So I told him, I said, hey, I'm willing to work. And I said, how about this? If you want to fly me somewhere and I'll do a run heading back to LA, I'll be more than happy to. And, at first the operator was like, I can't authorize that. I need you to be there to do that run, to possibly do a run, or possibly to cover in case somebody books off. And I said, you know what? I said, I really don't want to have to book off and just cushion myself back. And I was like, all right, just let me know. So not even 10 minutes later, they called me back, and they were like, hey, are you still willing to fly somewhere? And I'm like, yeah. It's like, we got a run in Vegas. We'll fly you to Vegas. We need you to cover this run going back to LA. Sure enough, I gave them those options. I let them know I'm willing to travel. Let them know I'm willing to work. I'm not just saying, oh, I just want to be home. Book me off. I'm going to be a dick about it. I'm done. No. Give them options. And sure enough, they cushioned me, which I get paid for. They flew me from Amarillo to Vegas, and then I did that run. So not only did I work for the company, got their run fulfilled, I got home that night, and I got paid extra for doing that cushion, and my second rest on top of all of that, and food and all that stuff. So be open with your options. Give them options that they didn't think about. Let them know that you're open to do other stuff. The next thing, check your pay. You'd be off. He goes, there's going to be a lot of times, especially on the extra board, where they're going to call you at the last minute and be like, hey, can you do this run? It was supposed to be out at this time, but we need you to take it out as soon as possible. Can you get there soon? And, if you're flexible, you got that time, you're fresh, consider taking it. Say, hey, yeah, I can get it out on time. But let them know that you want an incentive. An incentive is basically an extra pay for you to go out of your way and do things quickly, or to get out of your way and make sure the run gets out in time. Typically they're supposed to give you 2 hours notice. Sometimes I've had them call me and then be like, hey, this run is supposed to be out 10 minutes ago. Can you get there? You're close. Can you get there in like half an hour? Can you get there in less than an hour? And I'm like, yeah, I can get there in less than an hour. Make sure I get that sign on. Make sure I get the incentive pay. And sure enough, they'll be like, hey, sure, I got you. Make sure you got that incentive pay. Make sure you got that extra pay for getting the run out on time. Make sure you get extra pay for having less than 2 hours. And the next thing you know, you're doing those runs, and you're tacking on. That incentive pay is like an extra $25, So you could easily have a run that may get you $150, not $175. Then you start adding on that second rest, and you start adding on those meals. And it starts... it turns that day that could have just been like, maybe $120 into a $200 and something day. So watch your pay, and if you do those runs, make sure you get paid for it. Check your pay regularly, and if you see a discrepancy, sometimes they may sign you out early. Sometimes they ask you to do something, but they didn't put it in the notes, or it doesn't reflect on there. Like I had a time where they asked me to stop at an extra stop that wasn't on the run because the previous run was so delayed. You know, like I was coming from San Bernardino going to LA, and they were like, hey, this schedule is going to be delayed by like freaking, 3-4 hours. I got 3 people that need to go to Claremont. Can you drop them off? And I said, sure. I just noted that I stopped in Claremont. I called the payroll and I told them, hey, I need to get paid for that extra stop. And they were like, no problem. We see it's in here. It is in the notes. It was in your schedule. And they paid me for that extra stop. So watch your pay. It's very important that you know what you're going to be paid for. You watch that pay. You make sure it gets on there. Sometimes they may be delayed. I've had times it's supposed to take I think like a week to process your second rest and your meals. If I don't see it on my pay within a week and a few days, I call them and I say, hey, this is my confirmation number. This is, the information. I'm checking on the status of that extra pay, and they'll work with you. They'll look at it and be like, oh yeah, it got over to this guy. It should be in a few days. You want to make sure you watch your pay and you get paid for your work. And most important, and it's the last thing, I know this video is a little longer, but it's so important to make sure that you understand that, the 90 days can be the most hectic. And, why they're hectic is you're still on probation. If anything happens, you can be fired without reason. It can mess you up. So, a lot of people, you're still transitioning onto this hectic life of, being on the road and working crazy hours and being called whenever. So the last thing is, again, most important thing, and I touched on this before, is getting rest. Get rest. Don't be afraid. I've had times where I was out in the middle of nowhere. I was either the second or the only driver, and I just didn't get any rest. I slept for maybe like 3-4 hours. I just couldn't sleep. I had one day where they put us up at a hotel where they were doing construction. And I had to call them and just be like, hey, they're doing construction. I need to be moved. I can't sleep at all. I only slept for an hour or so. And next thing you know, I feel like crap. I've had plenty of days where I've told them, hey, I got this schedule at midnight. And, I got in early this morning. I know that I'm not going to be able to pull that run and be in any sort of good condition. So they'll work with you, they'll be like, okay, we understand. We don't want you to violate the law. We don't want you to be tired and driving that bus and get into an accident. So they'll understand. Let them know if you're tired. Let them know if you got to book off. Let them know if you need a few extra hours. Ask them to reset your time if, life happens. I had plenty of days I've gotten home and there was an accident on the highway. I didn't get home for like 2 hours. And the next thing I know I'm going to be called. So I'll call them and I'll be like, hey, I just got home. I need a little extra time. Can you reset my time, or can you add a few hours? I'm going to try and go to bed right now, And they want you to be rested. They want you to be safe, and you want to be safe. So those are my tips, my key tips for getting through your 90 and surviving. Because a lot of people get burnt out, a lot of people get frustrated, a lot of people get attitudes. But if you understand these basic tips, you'll make it through your 90, no problem. The job will be enjoyable. It'll be fun. You'll wake up, you'll see those runs, and you're just like, I want to go to that run. I want that run. And then, I want to do this. I want to go there, Woke up the other day, and I saw that Salt Lake City run was available, but it was a little past my fresh time, and they were going to send me back to LA. I called them. I said, hey, I want to work. I want to do that Salt Lake City run. I know it's a long run. And I know, it's going to be raining or snowing up there. I'm willing to do it. And they put me on it. I said, put it in the notes. They were like, sure. And they called me and they were like, hey, I saw that you were interested in that Salt Lake City run. A lot of people don't want to do that run right now. And I said, I want to do it. I want that money. And I did it. So be aware. So just remember those tips and you'll make it through your 90. You'll enjoy the job. You won't get burnt out. You'll find that it's fun to play the system. It's fun to just be like, yeah, I want that money. I want that extra pay. I want this extra that. And at the end of the day, this week, I worked, but I didn't have too many crazy runs. But I did a lot of extra stuff. I did a lot of short runs. I did a lot of, coming in and getting incentives and second rest. And I pulled in, just in 1 week, like $1,200. That's a nice little paycheck right there. And I still got extra coming in. So just be aware of that. And, be safe. If you're still on the fence, you know, all I can say is try it. You know, you're gonna get your Class B if you don't have it. You know, it's a really good job. You just gotta find, you know, you just gotta, you know, stay on your toes and enjoy life, man. And you know, you'll start to enjoy it. You'll start to enjoy the passengers. You know, the employees are really cool. The managers can be very cool. Operations can be very cool. So that's my tips for surviving the first 90. If you guys got any more questions, you know, feel free to answer. My next video, I'm gonna do another question and answer type deal, and keep you guys updated. All right, thanks for subscribing. I'll talk to you guys later.